أرض مصر، ويبقى احنا فعلا قدرنا نوصل ان احنا نعمل شبكة طرق قومية قد تصل ل 12,000 كيلو.
مصر عشان خانت وعلينا غيرت كتير فيها وفينا.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As we celebrate the 40th anniversary of Sinai Liberation Day, we're very much delighted to have with us here in the studio Dr. Yusriya Hamid, manager of the Egyptian-Italian Environmental Cooperation Project, affiliated to the Ministry of Environment and the UNDP. Now, Dr. Yusriya spent so many years as part of her career in the development of Sinai and the development of the Bedouins of Sinai, and particularly Sinai women. So it was very important to ask her about the part that she spent in Sinai and the development that she has witnessed. Thank you very much, Dr. Yusriya, for coming today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we start with the nature of your work in natural protectorates in Sinai. Tell me more about that.
Well, first, it's a pleasure to be with you today,
Thank
and let me seize this opportunity to congratulate all Egyptian people of the Sinai Liberation Day, as well as all the national and religious events that are happening these days. Well, my work at the protected areas, I started working with the protected areas more than 20 years ago. I started as a park ranger. And I was, by the way, I was the first female park ranger in Egypt.
Wow.
Thank you. As a park ranger, you do general duties as well as specific duties related to your profession. For the general duties, you do patrolling, you raise awareness to visitors and the local communities and the local populations. These are among the general duties that we used to do. Whereas specific duties, I'm anthropologist. I did my first degree on social and cultural anthropology, and therefore my work was related to coordination with the local communities, especially women. So I contributed to the Bedouin support program in the St. Catherine Protectorates in South Sinai. So I spent some quite good time over there working with the women on handicrafts program.
Nice.
And then I did my master's and PhD on searching and exploring the traditional knowledge of the Bedouin communities, and from there I developed an environmental education program for the children of the Bedouin community based on their own tradition and culture.
Of course, I want to know more about that, but since you spent some quite time, a long time in Sinai, you told me around 10 years, I want to see or know from you, how did you see the development over those years in Sinai?
Yeah, of course, very much developed. Well, the Bedouin communities until the 1970s used to use this mobile lifestyle. So they were like nomads. They move around the local environment, adapting to their local environment and depending in their livelihood directly on the natural resources.
Yes.
And then it has been developed, and they started to work in other work, and they started to gain other source of income, especially tourism, because tourism started to develop in these areas from the 1980s until now. So they shifted. So they shifted from relying totally on their livelihood on the natural resources to have some other source of work like tourism. So most of them nowadays they work in tourism as camelers and tour guides.
Okay.
And the Ministry for Environment is actually encouraging ecotourism because we are in protected areas and it's the Ministry of Environment, so they encourage ecotourism, and they developed some programs to train the local guides to become eco guides. So these are what the Ministry of Environment is doing over there, but mainly I was engaged with the Bedouin support program with women and
children. You told
women
me.
and children.
I'm interested to know more about that, Dr. Yusriya. The programs designed for the Bedouin women and children in Sinai.
Well, when I joined the protected area, the Bedouin supported program was already there, and the handicraft program was there. So I joined, where we used to see what are the items that the women traditionally developed. So we started to work with them on the very, very traditional items they developed, and the main icon of this item was sugar bag, that the Bedouin men, they take with them on their trips on the desert. So around this icon, we developed many other products that keep the pattern, the traditional pattern of the local culture, but apply it on more modernized design to be used for visitors and to be applicable to be used for visitors. So we started with 4 women. And now it was part of the Bedouin support program, but now it's an independent company run by one of the Bedouin ladies called Salima Gabali, and the company is called Fansina. And now they work nationally and internationally. Even they import their work, their products, even to Europe. And everywhere in Egypt.
Well, we have seen their products in so many exhibitions here in Cairo, like Diyarna and Turathna and so on. And we have seen amazing work. But you also told me that you were a part of programs raising awareness campaigns for the children in particular, how to protect the environment and preserve the resources.
Right. With the children, actually, the more I stayed with the Bedouin community, I started to interact with them and learn about their own culture and tradition. And then I found that a good deal of the Bedouin traditions is linked to the environment, and they adapt to the environment. They have massive traditional knowledge about the biodiversity and natural resources that they depend on. So for my master's and PhD, I developed this environmental education program based on the Bedouin tradition, especially the social system that they are using traditionally and the traditional law that protected the environment. So one of these social systems is called Al-Half. Al-Half in Arabic, it means alliance. Alliance where they for the Balea tribe in St. Catherine, they protect the natural plants and medicinal plants. So it has, specific techniques where they close certain valleys and then they open it after a certain time for grazing. So when it is closed, nothing is allowed. Only wild animals can graze naturally, but the domestic animals, they do not. And then they open it like after 3 months or so for domestic animals, and they open it gradually. First for camels and for sheep, and the last thing for goats. And there, where they enable the vegetation cover to grow, and not to be degraded.
Of course.
So I used all these ideas to develop this educational program for children, and it was amazing how the children, they really like to learn from their own culture and tradition. And I found that young people and elders, they communicate very well together in terms of keeping the tradition, whereas the middle-aged people, they didn't know much about the tradition because they were engaged in other activities.
But it always gives hope. It always gives hope that the younger generations are interested, and I find your ideas very interesting. So I want to ask you about the role of natural protected areas or protectorates in local development, especially in Sinai.
The main objective of the protected areas is to conserve the natural resources as well as the traditional heritage and culture. As far as I know, because at that time when the protected area was declared, it was on the late 1990s. I joined the protected areas in 1998. And they told me that even before the declaration of the protected areas, they used to have meetings with the local communities, ask them on their opinion and perspective about declaring certain protected areas and how they can be engaged, how they can participate and contribute to the conservation of the natural resources and biodiversity. And well, they discovered that the community, they are conservationists by nature. So they adapted to the local environment hundreds of years ago. So they were adapting to the local environment and therefore conserving the natural resources. So one of the important program that have been done within the protected area is to hire community guards from the local communities themselves, because the protected area is very large. It covers more than 4,000 kilometers squared, and the communities are scattered everywhere in the protected area. So in each settlement they have one community guard who can raise awareness, can report violation, and be the link between the protected areas and the community. And also they have done many other activities, such as like health programs for the local communities, veterinary program for the domestic animals of the community, and other conservation program that the community were engaged, like the rehabilitation of the acacia tree. The acacia tree is one of the main species in South Sinai. So there were these programs that took care of the rehabilitation of the acacia tree, and mainly the local communities were very much engaged on this program.
In this program.
Yeah.
Well, I find it very interesting. I enjoyed actually talking to you, Dr. Yusriya Hamid. Thank you very much. We had with us Dr. Yusriya Hamid, manager of the Egyptian-Italian Environmental Cooperation Project affiliated to the Ministry of Environment and UNDP. Very interesting ideas to develop Sinai that are actually on the ground, taking place for years. It was very important for us to highlight all those efforts. I'd like to thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi signing off for now.
مصر بلدنا تبقى في ازدهار